If you're like me, you get inundated with a lot of joke emails, most of which get deleted before you bother reading them. But every once in a while, a real good one comes through. And one was passed around not so long ago. You may have received it. And it was called the Guys' Rules. Now, what was particularly good about this one is often when you have jokes of men and women, you have men making fun of women, women making fun of men. This one was great because it was men making fun of men. And it was a long list of rules. And the truth of the matter is, as I read them, you'll see that many of these could be an entire class unto themselves. But we have a long list, and they were all appropriately numbered number 1. And I'm just going to read a few of them to you because you'll see how they interplay with this whole dynamic of communication. So we have number 1, ask for what you want. Let us be clear on this one. Subtle hints do not work. Strong hints do not work. Obvious hints do not work. Just say it. Number 1, yes and no are perfectly acceptable answers to almost every question. Number 1, come to us with a problem only if you want help solving it. That's what we do. Sympathy is what your girlfriends are for. Number 1, anything we said 6 months ago is inadmissible in an argument. In fact, all comments become null and void after 7 days. Number 1, if something we said can be interpreted 2 ways, and one of the ways makes you sad or angry, we meant the other one. Number 1, if we ask what is wrong and you say nothing, we'll act like nothing's wrong. We know you are lying, but it just isn't worth the hassle. And my husband's all-time favorite, number 1, you can either ask us to do something or tell us how you want it done, not both. If you already know the best way to do it yourself. Now, clearly men and women, vastly different, and yet we're intended to come together, and communication has to be at the root of how we're going to get along with one another. Communication is going to be, as we said, at the root of how any 2 people are going to get along with one another, which is specifically why the Torah defines a human being not as a thinker, but as a speaker. What makes us human is our ability to speak, our ability to communicate with one another. If you look in Genesis, there's a statement, Vayitzar Hashem Elokim et ha'adam afar min ha'adama, vayipach ba'afav nishmat chayim, v'yehi ha'adam lenefesh chaya. And God created man from the dust of the earth, and he blew into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So the question's asked, it seems a little redundant, a bit repetitive. If God blew into his nostrils the breath of life, he obviously became a living soul. Why the need to repeat it? So the words for living soul, nefesh chaya, Onkelos, the commentator, explains, are synonymous with a speaking spirit. What made man, what made a human being a human being? The ability to speak. Now what's interesting is the word chaya, which means living, has another meaning to it as well. What else is a chaya? An animal, a beast, which is teaching us a very important lesson. When we use our ability to speak, to communicate in a proper way, in the way it's intended to be used, then we merit the level of a human being. When we misuse it, when we abuse it, we revert back merely to the level of an animal. How we choose to use our speech is going to define our ability to merit being a human, and all the more so if the fact that we speak is what makes us a human. So how we speak is going to determine the kind of human being that we are. Now, we're taught that there are two kinds of speech. Verbal speech, which is most often what we think of when we talk about speech. And there's also physical speech, when our bodies talk. And we're taught that both kinds of speech create reality. Clearly, we know how physical speech creates reality, and verbal speech creates a permanence, a reality as well. You've all heard the term abracadabra, right? Our famous words from the magician that said right before, this rabbit's pulled out of a hat that clearly wasn't there before. So we're taught that one of the explanations for this, one of the origins, is that abracadabra is Aramaic in its origin for Abracadabra. I create when I speak. When I say something, I bring it into reality. Now, there were 10 measures of speech given to humankind. 9 of these were given to women. Shocking. But we got 9 of the 10 measures of speech. But we see very interestingly that in the commandments specific to women, that our speech can actually create a new reality. What's one of the most powerful examples of this is lighting Shabbat candles. Shabbat comes in at 6 o'clock. At 5:30, I am ready to light my candles. I mean, it's never actually happened, but theoretically, at 5:30, I'm ready to light candles. I light the candles, I say the blessing, and I've created Shabbats in my home. It's phenomenal. It's actually a mind-blowing concept. I've created a reality that doesn't exist anywhere else. For the rest of my community, there's another half an hour. But by my speech, by virtue of saying something, I was able to create something that otherwise wouldn't have been there. And it's not, I lit, oops, forgot about something in the oven, well, anyway, I have a half an hour. I don't have another second. I said something, I made it happen. The power of speech creates a reality that wasn't there. Now, interestingly with this, come 6 o'clock, Shabbat's going to happen with or without me. It's going to happen, but I have the ability to bring in the holiness, to usher it in even before it's time. When I use my speech properly, I can create an environment that otherwise wouldn't have been there. Speech creating reality, we usually know more from the things we shouldn't have said than from the things we should have said. We all, I'm sure, have those dreaded memories of saying the wrong thing, that once you say it, it's very, very hard to make it go away. You can tell a person 100 times, I love you. You say, I hate you once. And it's very hard to make up. 100 more I love yous may never quite equal the balance.